80% of gardeners lose the weed war every season. That's not opinion. That's a failure rate. The weak link? Bare soil. It's an open invitation for weeds. Physics favors the fastest invader. In just 14 days, weeds can outpace your crops 3-1. Every hour spent weeding is lost efficiency. Manual weeding is a losing battle. You clear one patch, weeds reclaim it. It's a closed loop of wasted effort. Result? 85% more time spent, 40% less yield. That's engineering failure. Now compare. Ground cover blocks 95% of weed growth. It's not theory, it's mechanical exclusion. Vegetables thrive, roots stay cool, water loss drops by half. Efficiency triples, no more endless weeding, no more wasted weekends, just results. The fix is simple. Engineer your garden for coverage. Outcompete weeds from day one. Covered soil is stable soil. Bare soil is a liability. Stop fighting physics. Design for efficiency. The only thing that works is coverage. We rely too much on brute force, but only smart engineering beats weeds, every time. To truly understand why that first garden bed becomes such a weedy mess, we must look at the world from nature's perspective. In the wild, you will very rarely find large patches of completely bare soil. An empty space in the landscape is an anomaly, a wound that nature will rush to heal and cover as quickly as possible. This is one of nature's most powerful instincts, to protect the soil. Exposed earth is vulnerable. It is susceptible to being baked hard by the sun, washed away by heavy rain, or eroded by the wind. This loss of topsoil is a disaster for any ecosystem, and nature has evolved an incredibly effective emergency response system to prevent it. That emergency response system is, of course, what we gardeners call weeds. The seeds of these pioneer plants are everywhere, lying dormant in the soil for years, just waiting for their moment. They are tough, adaptable, and incredibly opportunistic. When they detect the right conditions, primarily the full glare of sunlight hitting the soil surface, it is their signal to burst into life. They are nature's first responders, designed to germinate rapidly, grow quickly, and cover the exposed ground. Their roots hold the soil together, and their leaves provide shade, preventing it from drying out and creating a more stable environment for other, less hardy plants to eventually follow. So when we diligently clear a bed and leave the soil bare in preparation for planting our precious crops, we are inadvertently sending out an open invitation. We are creating the very conditions that weed seeds are programmed to exploit. That beautiful, clean expanse of dark earth is, to a weed, a perfect landing strip. The sunlight warms the soil and triggers germination for countless seeds that were lying in wait just beneath the surface. Each time we dig or till, we bring a fresh batch of these dormant seeds to the top, restarting the cycle and ensuring a continuous battle for the rest of the season. It's a frustrating, self-perpetuating problem. Therefore, the never-ending task of weeding is not a sign that you are a bad gardener. It is a sign that you are fighting one of nature's most fundamental and powerful drives. You are trying to maintain a state, bare soil, that the natural world actively abhors. It is a constant struggle because you are working directly against this powerful imperative to cover and protect the ground. Understanding this changes everything. The problem isn't the weeds themselves, they are merely a symptom. The real problem is the bare soil. Once we grasp this, we can stop fighting an unwinnable war and start looking for a more intelligent, cooperative solution. The secret to a weed-free garden, then, is not to endlessly pull weeds, but to eliminate the conditions they need to thrive. If bare, sunlit soil is the problem, the solution is to cover it. This is where the concept of a living carpet, or a living mulch, comes into its own. By intentionally planting a dense, low-growing cover of desirable plants between our main crops, we create a living blanket that effectively smothers out weeds before they even have a chance to start. It is a wonderfully simple and proactive strategy that uses nature's own tactics to our advantage, creating a stable and balanced plant community instead of a chaotic free-for-all. The primary way a living ground cover works is by blocking sunlight. As we've discussed, most weed seeds require direct light to trigger germination. A thick carpet of leaves from plants like creeping thyme, Roman chamomile, or white clover creates a dense canopy of shade just above the soil surface. This leafy barrier intercepts the sunlight, leaving the soil beneath it dark and cool. The weed seeds lying dormant in the top layer of earth never receive their wake-up call. They simply remain asleep, unable to sprout. You have effectively closed the window of opportunity that bare soil provides, preventing the problem at its source rather than reacting to it after the fact. Beyond just blocking light, a living carpet also competes for resources. Any opportunistic weed that does manage to germinate in a tiny gap will find itself in a very hostile environment. It will be surrounded by the dense, established root systems of the ground cover, all of which are already drawing water and nutrients from the soil. The young weed seedling is immediately outcompeted for these essential resources, and it will struggle to grow, often withering away before it can become a problem. This is a far more efficient and natural process than us having to constantly patrol our beds, pulling every new invader by hand. The ground cover does the work for you. This living blanket also has the wonderful side effect of regulating the soil's microclimate. It insulates the soil, keeping it cooler and moister during hot, dry weather. This reduces water evaporation, meaning you need to water less often, which is a significant benefit in itself. The consistent moisture and temperature create a much healthier environment for the roots of your vegetable crops, reducing stress and encouraging vigorous growth. Furthermore, this stable environment is a paradise for beneficial soil life, such as earthworms and microorganisms, which are essential for building healthy, fertile soil structure. A living carpet doesn't just stop weeds, it actively improves your entire garden ecosystem. For years, the standard advice for suppressing weeds has been to use mulches like bark chippings, wood chips, or even black plastic sheeting. And well, it's true. These methods can be effective at blocking light and reducing weed growth to a certain degree. They're certainly a step up from leaving the soil completely bare. However, when we compare these inanimate coverings to a living, breathing carpet of plants, their shortcomings become quite apparent. A living ground cover offers a dynamic, holistic set of benefits that inert mulches simply cannot match, especially when it comes to the long-term health and vitality of your soil. Let's first consider bark mulch. While it looks tidy and does a decent job of suppressing weeds and retaining moisture, it does have its downsides. As bark and wood chips decompose, they can temporarily draw nitrogen from the top layer of soil, a process known as nitrogen robbery. This can leave your shallow-rooted crops hungry for this vital nutrient. Furthermore, thick layers of wood mulch can become a perfect hiding place for slugs and snails, creating a different kind of problem for your tender seedlings. While it is a good organic material, it is a passive layer, not an active participant in the garden's ecosystem. Black plastic sheeting is perhaps the least desirable option from a soil health perspective. It is undeniably effective at blocking weeds and warming the soil, which can be useful in some specific, short-term situations. However, it is a completely impermeable barrier. It suffocates the soil, preventing the natural exchange of air and water. The ground beneath it can become compacted, lifeless, and anaerobic, devoid of the beneficial worms and microbes that create good soil structure. Rainwater runs off its surface instead of soaking in, and at the end of its life, it becomes a plastic waste product that must be disposed of, contributing to environmental pollution. It is a profoundly unnatural solution. In stark contrast, a living ground cover actively feeds and improves the soil it protects. As the plants in your living carpet grow, their roots create channels that aerate the soil and improve its structure. When they shed leaves or are trimmed, the organic matter decomposes in place, adding nutrients and humus directly where they are needed. If you choose a leguminous ground cover, such as microclover or vetch, it will actively draw nitrogen from the air and fix it in the soil through nodules on its roots, providing a free and continuous source of fertilizer for your crops. It is a living, breathing system that gives back far more than it takes, building fertility year after year. Embracing the idea of a living carpet in your own garden, whether in raised beds or backyard plots, is wonderfully straightforward. The key is to choose the right plants for the job and to time their introduction correctly. You are looking for plants that are low-growing, spread to form a dense mat, and are not so aggressive that they will overwhelm your main crops. Some excellent and easy-to-manage choices include sweet alyssum, with its honey-scented flowers that attract pollinators, creeping thyme, which is drought-tolerant and releases a lovely fragrance when brushed against, or microclover, a special variety of white clover that stays very low and actively fertilizes the soil. The first step is preparation and timing. It is usually best to let your main crops, your tomatoes, courgettes, or kale, get established first. Plant your vegetables as you normally would. Wait until they are a few inches tall and have developed a good, strong root system. This gives them a crucial head start. Once your primary plants are growing well, you can then sow the seeds for your living carpet. This timing ensures that the ground cover will not outcompete your young vegetables for light and water at their most vulnerable stage. It's about establishing a hierarchy where your crops are the clear winners. Sowing the seeds is a simple and satisfying task. First, gently weed the area around your established plants one last time. Then, mix your tiny ground cover seeds with some dry sand or fine soil. This helps you to distribute them more evenly and see where you have sown. Carefully scatter this mixture over the bare soil surface between your vegetable plants. You don't need to be too precise. A light, even broadcast is perfect. After sowing, water the area gently with a fine rose on your watering can to settle the seeds in and encourage germination without washing them away. Once your living carpet begins to grow, management is minimal. The main task is simply to ensure it doesn't get too boisterous and start climbing up your vegetable plants. If your ground cover, such as alyssum, starts to grow a bit too tall or encroach on your crops, simply give it a haircut with a pair of shears or scissors. Let the clippings fall right onto the soil surface, where they will decompose and add to the soil's fertility. This occasional trim is all that's needed to maintain the balance, keeping the ground cover in its place as a helpful understory rather than a competitor. This elegant principle of using a living surface to control unwanted growth extends beyond the soil of our vegetable plots. The same logic applies beautifully to water gardens, ponds, and even hydroponic systems. In any body of still, nutrient-rich water that is exposed to sunlight, the equivalent of weeds, algae, will inevitably bloom. An algal bloom can cloud the water, deplete oxygen, and create an unhealthy environment for fish and other aquatic life. The solution, once again, is not to constantly fight the algae with chemicals, but to outcompete it by covering the water's surface with desirable floating plants. Plants like duckweed or the beautiful water fern azolla are perfect for this role. They float on the surface, multiplying quickly to form a dense green mat. This living blanket blocks the sunlight from penetrating the water column, effectively starving the algae of the light energy it needs to photosynthesize and grow. Just as a living carpet of clover shades the soil, these floating plants shade the water, creating clarity and balance. They also absorb excess nutrients from the water, further limiting the resources available for an algal bloom. It's another perfect example of using a plant-based solution to prevent a common problem. The overarching message is one of profound simplicity. Stop fighting nature and start working with it. The endless cycle of weeding, of battling for bare soil, is exhausting and ultimately futile because it goes against the fundamental tendencies of the natural world. A garden should be a place of joy, creativity, and abundance, not a battleground. By adopting techniques like living mulches, we align our gardening practices with ecological principles. We create resilient, self-regulating systems that are healthier, more productive, and require significantly less labor from us. This frees up our time to focus on the more enjoyable aspects of gardening, like planting, harvesting, and simply being in our green spaces. I urge you to try this in a small part of your garden this year. Choose one raised bed or a small patch and commit to keeping it covered. Plant your lettuces or beans And once they are established, sow a carpet of sweet alyssum or microclover beneath them. Watch as this living blanket spreads, protecting your soil and eliminating the need for weeding. Compare the health of those plants, the moisture in that soil, and the lack of weeds to a neighboring plot that you've kept bare. The results will speak for themselves. You will be taking the first step towards a more harmonious way of gardening, one that saves your back, enriches your soil, and grows more beautiful, healthy food with less effort.